International. Culture and Nature.
Welcome to Culture and Nature. I'm Jen Nussbaum. Romania's public libraries have been facing a readership crisis, which has been enhanced by the COVID-19 pandemic. In the first part of 2020, public libraries were closed down under the officially declared state of emergency. Subsequently, the Bucharest Metropolitan Library's district branches reopened, albeit partially. Yet the interest for reading is maintained and stimulated through alternative means, such as the literary creation contest themed The World of Tomorrow, jointly organized by the library and by the Bucharest Municipality's School Inspectorate. The contest is open for all high school students of Bucharest, grades 9 to 12. Its stated aim is to promote and spot the young talents, but also to get the youngsters to befriend the world of books. The contest began in autumn, when the works entered the competition, and drew to a close once the names of the participants were made public. Ramona Meze is the general manager of the Bucharest Metropolitan Library. She'll now be giving details on the underlying intentions of the contest that was initiated 2 years ago.
Ideea de a organiza un astfel de concurs la Biblioteca Metropolitană București.
The idea of organizing such a contest for the Bucharest Metropolitan Library sprang to mind 2 years ago, in 2019, when I dared high school students in Bucharest to take part in a creativity contest. Started off with the premise that imagination is a quality any adolescent has, and it can be stimulated or developed. And in a world where the future is almost impossible to foresee, and according to estimations, almost half of today's jobs will disappear, there are signs, undoubtedly, that the future jobs will be to a far greater extent than today, based on creativity and critical thinking. Those were the underlying tenets when we launched the contest, with a topic dedicated to our capital city. I love the city of Bucharest. And the eventual aim of that project, just as today's project, now in its second edition, themed The World of Tomorrow, which enters the topic, was to encourage the creativity and the empathy of the youngsters who at their age still have strong and boisterous emotions, which oftentimes are difficult to put in writing. Also, we wanted to encourage the youngsters to develop those skills so useful in life, but which we so easily lose in everyday life. The officially imposed lockdown has not exhausted youngsters' inspiration. Nay, the lockdown seems to have stimulated it on a number of occasions. Proof of that stand the awards for the texts in the 3 sections, as well as the 23 honorary mentions granted by the judging panel. Ramona Meze once again.
Au fost în acele 3 secțiuni ale concursului dramaturgie, poveste și poezie.
Entered in the 3 sections of the contest, drama, short fiction and poetry, there were more than 90 works, and this is a sign literature still benefits from a very generous source of creative energy among our teenagers. And yes, there really were 23 honorary mentions. Each competitor received a participating diploma, which also was awarded to the teachers who got involved in the activity. In the drama section, we had 2 awards. In the poetry section, there were several participants competing for the same position. We also had that in the prose section, but most of the works were for the poetry section, that's for sure. As for stimulating reading in times of crisis, the transition from virtual to real is highly likely to be auspicious. With details on that, here is the general manager of the Bucharest Metropolitan Library, Ramona Meze. Again.
Conform datelor colectate în cadrul studiului Cultură în carantină, mai exact...
According to data gathered as part of the study titled Culture During Lockdown, actually a monitoring undertaking carried for the cultural field during the COVID-19 crisis, the great change regarding cultural consumption is related to the transfer from offline to online. There are pros and cons of that, as you may know. Starting off from such ideas, the Bucharest Metropolitan Library has also developed several online projects. So the public library has somehow turned from the venue where children, youngsters and adults could socialize and participate in cultural events into some sort of virtual library where access is available not only to the registered members, but absolutely to anybody else, at home or from abroad, so whoever may want to take part in the cultural events on offer. The challenges the public library has been facing all this time were just as big as those any other cultural institution had to face, yet we tried to adapt from the very first days. Part of our educational cultural projects, we moved them exclusively online, and we have come up with new projects. We have continued to initiate and implement activities meant to maintain our connection active with our users, and to that end, we have launched a series of online projects and also outdoor events where we complied with all the safety measures imposed by the authorities. And that was culture and nature. And with that, our broadcast in English for listeners in Western Europe, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific area has come to an end. You can listen to our next program for Western Europe at 1100 hours UTC on 13750 kHz and 15130 kHz. We can also be heard on the internet at rri.ro Channel 1. Listeners in Southeast Asia are invited to tune in again tomorrow at 300 hours UTC on 15330 kHz in the DRM system and on 11825 kHz in the analog system. Listeners in the Pacific area are invited to tune in again tomorrow at 5:30 UTC on 21550 kHz and 17760 kHz. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write an email at engo@rri.ro. Goodbye.